But if we stayed home and did nothing, doom would find us anyway, sooner or later. That thought has long been growing in our hearts, and that is why we are marching now. It was not a hasty resolve. Now at least the last march of the Ents may be worth a song.
Hey everyone, Yoyston here, and I hope you all are doing well, wherever you are in Middle-earth. Today I have an interesting lore video for you all, discussing each time the Ents went to war, including one battle actually after the last march of the Ents and the drowning of Isengard. Sources will be in the description. My friends, thank you all for joining me today. Let's begin our tale. After the creation of the Ents in the Years of the Trees to be kind of a counter to the dwarves, the champions of nature, the shepherds of forests, they were meant to protect all things that grow. They were awakened by the elves and they learned speech. They, perhaps more than the other races in Middle-earth, better understood their purpose innately. The Ents were strong like the roots that grow into the earth, and that strength was dedicated to the keeping of nature and the forests. Yet, as we know in Middle-earth, there were many creatures of evil, and some not even necessarily of evil will, that tormented nature and broke many trees, burning it, using it as fuel for their industries of war and conquest for power, or even for the creation of ships like the Númenóreans, or for projects like the dwarves. Our first known instance of the Ents actually marching to war was actually not against the orcs nor Morgoth, but we'll come back to that in a second. It was against the dwarves of Nogrod, they who sacked the elven kingdom of Doriath near the end of the First Age and slew King Thingol, taking the Nauglamir and the Silmaril within for their own. It is likely that this sacking did actually destroy much of the nature of Menegroth, and it would eventually lead to the end of the girdle and protection of Melian upon the forest, but whether it was for that reason or simply the death of the Elven King or for the rallying of the Green Elves behind Beren the One-Handed, the Ents actually rallied too, and came to the Battle of Sarn Athrad in 503 of the First Age as the dwarves attempted to return home from their slaughter of the elves. Dwarves were slain in this battle, and those that entered the forests of the Blue Mountains did not come back out. Now, for this to be the first known battle that the Ents actually participated in is rather interesting, and to be honest, not altogether convincing. I could absolutely see them having participated in previous battles or wars before, such as when Morgoth challenged Thingol Sindar and the Green Elves in the late Years of the Trees, or even in the ruin that came to the north during the Battle of Sudden Flame or Battle of Unnumbered Tears in the late First Age. You have all of these insane battles that took place in the north, yet no real mention of the Ents. But who knows? Yet we have no record of them actually participating in these battles, but surely the War of Wrath, one of the largest and most untold wars in the history of Middle-earth, must have seen some of the Ents go to war, particularly because it would end any of the remaining forests that crossed into Beleriand, as well as Beleriand itself. And so we come into the Second Age of Middle-earth, where it is said that all manners of folk, birds and beasts and others, except for the elves alone, fought in the War of the Last Alliance and on both sides. Now, to be honest, this quote that is tied to this idea has stirred up a lot of conversation and debate, as it actually implies that Ents even fought for and against Sauron. Now, I highly doubt that, of course, but it does seem likely that the War of the Last Alliance saw either the utter annihilation of the Entwives or the capture and enslavement of those that remained in a place called the Brownlands. While it is unlikely that the Ents actually fought in Mordor, it is possible that they fought against orcs in eastern Calenarthon and into the Brownlands during the early part of the war. Another theory that I will link in the description is also rather interesting. This idea that due to how many forests the Númenóreans cut down, all the wood they used for their ships, it could actually be that the Ents fought and may have lost to the Númenóreans as well. Honestly, it would make sense. They were an expanding and conquesting civilization bent on capturing as much land as they could, and they deforested much of their own island, as well as the mainland parts of Middle-earth for their great ships. It would have been symbolic of their lack of wisdom, turning against both Elf and Ent, any who stood in the way of their conquest for glory. Finally, we come to the Third Age, and as it was the late years of the world, at least according to Ents, Elves, and Dwarves, they were even less active than they had been in previous ages. At least, that's kind of implied in the lore. But now we come to the last march of the Ents, their most notable and heroic moment, as well as the battle that actually came afterwards. In 3019, during the War of the Ring, the Ents recognized that much of Fangorn had been destroyed by the wizard Saruman the White, who had lived in Isengard for many years and was once their friend. Yet, in his ambitions and pursuits, he forgot his friends and allies of old. In the industries and fires of Isengard, in his conquest through Rohan, many trees and even some Ents likely who had gone tree-ish or horns were destroyed. This caused Fangorn, who yet remembered the forests that stretched from near Anduin to eastern Beleriand in the Elder Days, to rally the Ents and go to war. Fangorn, or Treebeard, would lead them and destroy most of Isengard, flooding the ring with the diverted waters of the Isen River. Now, there is actually mention of another battle, as I keep alluding to. Perhaps not another march after their last, but indeed another skirmish that happened for the Ents after the fall of Isengard. According to Appendix B and its Tale of the Years, the timeline of many of the great events in Tolkien's lore, we actually see that Ents went into the Eastimnent, the eastern part of Rohan, to defend it from orc invaders, near to the time that the Battle of Pelennor Fields was going to take place. This was towards the Anduin in the Wold, or even in the lands that the Uruk-hai who had been carrying Merry and Pippin went through. Now this happened after most of the Rohirrim had answered Gondor's call to war from the delivery of the Red Arrow, and the orcs must have seen an opportunity to invade from here. Luckily for those like Erkenbrand who remained to defend Rohan, that the Ents came to their aid here as well. Now as far as the canon is concerned, these are all of the times we know that the Elves took the march to war, and some ideas about other potential moments. But what do you all think? Are there other moments where such war might have occurred and we actually know little to nothing about it? Let me know in the comments below. And something else we must consider and keep in mind as we discuss this topic and so many others is how many Ents were actually spread out around the world of Middle-earth? How did they interact with other cultures and societies, and how many other times did they fight off orcs, dwarves, men, whoever else? It's interesting to think about, right? Ents in the east or in the south as the forests continue to go those ways. From this tale, we see that we must ensure our wisdom expands to protect the world, for if it does not, the world will fight back, and the world will always win. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on every time that the Ents march to war in the comments below. Leave a like if you enjoyed this, and share this with a friend. If you'd like to support the channel, we have an ending partnership with Mythologie Candles through the link below. And we've got CastleCon's Lord of the Rings replicas, as well as Jordan Rennell's soundscapes for the audiobooks. Use all of those codes below in the description to help out the channel and get yourself a discount. To support the channel, please take a look at our merch and our second channel, Masters of Mythology, and thanks to our patrons and members, and especially our Valar tier patrons, Joby Weasel, Ed Patterson, ComicNut64, Zoomi, Peter Sheppard, thank you all so much. My friends, thank you all for joining me on this adventure. Don't forget to subscribe. Until the next one.